agents and supporters. In this situation, the coalition forces led by the US are stepping up their efforts by attacking in self-defense. The US Navy began its fifth round of major strikes against the Iranian-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen last night. This was possible because the US, Israel, and the UK shared information and worked together. This happens only 22 hours after the last round of strikes. In this case, it shows how tense things are in the area and how the risks are rising. Now we'll discuss the fifth round of US strikes against the Houthi rebels, with Israeli intelligence backing. We'll also talk about what Israel, the US, and the rest of the West are doing to get ready for war with Iran. Rising tensions in the area could bring more people into an already growing war. On Thursday, the US military began its fifth round of attacks against Houthi weapons in Yemen, this time aiming anti-ship missiles at the Red Sea, hours after firing the first round. A Pentagon source reported that the strikes destroyed more than a dozen Houthi missiles that were being prepared for launch. About a quarter of the Houthi weapons were believed to have been destroyed. The US Central Command revealed the strike on Thursday. It was part of ongoing efforts by many countries to protect freedom of navigation and stop attacks on naval ships in the Red Sea. Central Command reported that the missiles aimed at the southern part of the Red Sea were ready to fire upon detection. The statement said that they posed an immediate danger to commercial ships and US Navy ships in the area. At about 3:40 p.m. Sana'a time, US troops found the missiles in Houthi-controlled areas of Yemen and decided they were an immediate threat to commercial ships and US Navy ships in the area. The US then used self-defense to shoot down and destroy the rockets. According to the CENTCOM statement, the US conducted the latest strikes against the anti-ship missiles in self-defense due to the potential threat they pose to US ships. The statement did not specify whether the rockets were ballistic or cruise missiles. It said that 18 US units were involved in the attack, but it didn't say which groups. US and Israeli intelligence believe the Houthis are preparing to attack the US Navy and civilian ships in the area. In the fifth round of strikes, the US also went after Houthi secret missile bases. Israeli and American spies worked together to find its location and target it. The military technology infrastructure and surveillance systems in Israel are the most advanced in the area. In its war against Hamas and Hezbollah, Israel has also gotten very good at finding the secret bunkers, tunnels, and weapon stores of Iranian agents. The US and UK armies are present in the area, but the Israeli military is much faster at keeping an eye on things. The US military is always getting information from Israel's fighter jets, spy satellites, monitoring drones, and intelligence services. The US Central Command said in a statement Thursday that these strikes and other steps they are taking will make it harder for the Houthis to keep attacking foreign and commercial ships in the Gulf of Aden, the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, and the Red Sea. President Joe Biden said that the US will keep hitting the Houthis as long as they keep attacking ships in the Red Sea. President Biden said Thursday that the United States will keep bombing Houthi rebels in Yemen, who are backed by Iran. He also said that the bombing has not yet stopped terrorists from attacking ships in the Red Sea. Before leaving the White House for a speech on domestic policy in North Carolina, President Biden told the press that the US would keep the strikes going. Do they stop the Houthis when I say work? No. Are they going to keep going? In his speech, President Biden said yes. Captain Jean Moran, now retired from the US Navy, stated that the offensive aimed to destroy Houthi weapons on land before their potential use. Captain Moran said, "It's much more effective to knock the archer ashore than to shoot all the arrows." Captain Moran also expected similar actions to continue as the conflict in the area persisted. Following the US attacks, Houthi rebels, an Iranian-backed militia group that controls parts of Yemeni territory facing the Red Sea, fired on and seized ships going to or from Egypt's Suez Canal, which is a very busy freight shipping route. The ships were in the narrow strait between Yemen and East Africa. Abu Malik al-Houthi, the leader of the Houthis, said on TV that the US strikes would not stop the group from continuing to attack ships and go to war with the US. After the fifth hit, Tehran didn't know what was going on. In the same way, right after the Houthis increased their attacks on the US Navy, Tehran tried to change the subject so that they could clean up the Houthi mess. Iran hit Turkey, Iraq, and Pakistan for trivial reasons. The US and Israel have not yet reacted to Iran's attacks in Syria and Iraq because they don't want to make things worse. But Tehran did a very bad thing when it went after Pakistan. Pakistan delivered a triple strike to Iran immediately. Tehran's plan to draw the US and Israel's attention to the north didn't work, but it did make things much worse for Tehran. The situation between Washington and Tehran is getting worse and worse, and both sides are using their emergency plans. All 8 world powers are now looking at the Middle East, specifically the Red Sea, the Gulf of Aden, and the areas around them. All countries and big businesses are experiencing an economic slowdown because of the current situation on this important route. The so-called axis of resistance and the acts of Tehran's leaders in the Middle East, where they want to bring back the Persian Empire, are to blame. It is important for the West and Israel to focus on Iran itself, not its agents. The real problem that needs to be solved lies in Tehran, where the conflict started in the first place. People have been talking about how the conflict between Israel and Hamas could grow since it started in October. There are growing fears that other major countries, including the United States, could join this growing conflict. Today, it's evident that the Iranian dictatorship is solely responsible for the escalating situation. Even though Tehran says it had nothing to do with the attacks on American military bases in Iraq and Syria and on merchant ships in the Red Sea, most people agree that the Shiite militias that did the damage, especially the Yemeni Houthis, were working for the government. Tehran says that these groups work freely and only for their own benefit, but there is a lot of proof that they are directly involved, as shown by the fact that they openly support these actions. The leaders of Iran have done everything they can to get the US involved in the fight. With help from Iran, Hezbollah has started to cause trouble along Israel's northern border. Simultaneously, with support from Iran, the Houthi rebel group has been attacking ships in an attempt to completely close off the Red Sea if no action is taken. These moves to get ready could make it possible for a better planned attack. Along with a new marine security coalition, the US began limited retaliation strikes against sites used by Iraqi and Syrian militias that had attacked US service members more than 100 times since the middle of October. However, the White House has avoided fighting the Tehran instigator. This does not mean the US should attack Iran. If Western nations want to prevent a larger war, they must act against the main force behind all of the above non-state entities. If Iran's wealth and leadership remain unchanged, halting agents won't work. US and partner sanctions and diplomatic pressure can damage Iran. They can also support Tehran overthrowist opposition groups. Western policymakers and military experts increasingly concur that Iran has and will continue to have a mass pro-democracy movement. The biggest opposition group, the National Council of Resistance of Iran, wants the West to recognize the Iranian people's battle instead of supporting them militarily or financially. Many Western officials have risked supporting Iranians trying to overthrow the regime. There's much to do in the West. Comprehensive sanctions, such as banning Iran from selling oil, would make it tougher for Tehran to pay its proxy troops. Allowing the country's rebellious youth to battle the Revolutionary Guards would send a powerful message that things can't continue. No one knows what will spark a fresh upheaval in Iran as its internal condition worsens. However, the West cannot afford to act. The sword is double-edged. However,